Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Tales from the Fandom. Today, I am joined by an artist that I have had my eye on and ear on for a number of years, and we have crossed like ships in the night during that time since I had heard him on the Happy Hour podcast with Johnny and Deuce. And I am proud to have a local artist joining me today, Josh Bauer. Welcome to the podcast, Josh.
Thank you, David. I appreciate you having me. And yeah, it's been a long time trying to get us together onto this show. It's I didn't realize the last time we were really talking was like over a year ago.
Yeah, I actually scrolled back to our initial conversation, and it was something like 2017.
Yeah.
When I first had reached out to you, and I think I'd met you at a art show in one of the malls that is pretty much dead now in Orlando.
Oh, okay.
I think you were displaying something up, displaying some stuff up there, and then I've heard you on the Happy Hour podcast, and yeah, and I've been following your Facebook page and everything for a long time now.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you very much.
So we'll definitely be talking about your art, and you've got a great art style that I don't think I've really seen anything like it as far as like replication. Because as somebody that goes to a lot of conventions, I tend to see a lot of the same art and art styles like replicated
Right.
over and over and over again. And yours is something where, man, there are some pieces of yours that I want in my house. It's just a matter of having approval and then finding the space for it.
Right. Yeah, I always view my work as a chaotic version of different stuff, and sometimes you never see the same style twice from me. I look at, because I have some of my artwork in my room right now, and it would be hard to tell that it's the same person doing one piece to another. So I usually confuse people at conventions when it's all together in one big spot.
Definitely. So we'll definitely hit that later in the episode. We narrowed down some fandoms to talk about, and
Yes.
I wanted to jump right in because one of your fandoms is one that I have been heavily influenced by, and that is Joss Whedon's TV shows Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel.
Oh yeah.
Were you like an early adopter of being into Buffy the Vampire Slayer when it first aired, or was it something that came later?
Sadly, no. If I remember correctly, I actually got into Angel first. It was a guy that my mom was married, dating to at the time, and he liked Angel, and I think he liked Buffy the Vampire Slayer before. So I actually found Angel like I want to say second or third season, and kind of got into that and started watching all of that, and then realized that there was Buffy before that. So I went through, and luckily the guy had all the box sets, so I binge watched all of Buffy as much as I could through DVDs back then, and to catch up, because I think I caught it at like right at the middle of a season. So once that season was done, I spent the break between the two seasons catching up on everything, so I knew all the lore and all that. But yeah, I was more of a latecomer. I think I got into it. It might have been. I think I watched the last season of Buffy as it aired, so I was really late to the game.
Okay. I remember, and this is like way throwback, I remember working at Blockbuster Video, and the first season had come out. They had released not the whole first season, mind you. They released like 3 videotapes that each had like 2 or 3 episodes of the first season of Buffy.
Oh wow!
On videotape, and one of my coworkers was like, "Oh yeah, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, something that I think you'd really like." And I brought the videotapes home with me and watched them. I was like, "Yeah, this is cool." And I got into it somewhere in like the second season,
Okay.
and then from there it was, on Tuesday nights, no phone calls, please. Don't call me. Don't show up at my apartment. do not disturb me from like 8 to 10, please.
Yeah, yeah. Back when the day when you actually had to watch it when it aired because you would probably never see it again, or it would be at least a while before you got to see it again.
Oh my goodness, there was a time, it was during Buffy's sixth season.
Hmm.
um I had moved to an apartment that did not have cable, and they weren't planning on getting cable. I was only there for the summer,
Oh,
like from like May-ish, April, May-ish to like the start of the next semester of college. And I had to get online and go into one of those like Buffy forums and find somebody and make an arrangement of, I will pay you, I think it was like five or $10 every week, and they would mail a videotape out the next day
oh my
to
gosh.
me for watching the episodes.
That's too funny. That's crazy. Now I had a slightly like it was the last season of Angel. I was living with a friend of mine, and like it was we were I was because I was still in high schoolish time, I think. So I was living with a friend, and he wasn't into it, and they had like a big family. But I remember like making sure I knew the time and day to go and sit in their kitchen on the smallest TV in the house to watch Angel because I did not want to miss an episode of that last season.
Exactly. And that was the thing. And it's funny now with me having kids, and they're like, I tell them stories of, if we missed it, like you never knew if you'd watch it again. Like
Hmm.
there were shows that didn't get reruns.
Yeah, or they didn't automatically come out on VHS or whatever it was. So you had to make sure to catch that episode, and then if not, you were lost forever. And hopefully, they recapped it well enough in the next episode so you could kind of understand what's going on.
Exactly. What was the draw for you when, like, for getting into Angel and then going back to watch Buffy? Like, what was it about those shows that just really captured your attention?
I love the characters and the character stories and how everybody was kind of, and especially like in Angel, it seemed like everybody had their own messed up things, and they weren't like the like superheroes. They were just people that had Angel was his, he had his dark past in this, and everybody had their flaws, but they were still able to save the day, save the world, and things like that. And then just the mix of the storylines where you would get the real serious ones, but there would be some jokes cracked in there, and then you would get the more lighthearted episodes to break up in between it. And it just was this perfect combination of the characters and the stories that it just drew me in like right off the bat. I watched one episode randomly, and I'm like, okay, I need to know more about this and deep dive. And then when I found there was whole show before Angel, I'm like, my mind was blown.
I think for people that love Buffy and Angel, you hit the nail on the head. It's the characters, and it's the way that the stories are. Where, yes, they've got vampires, they've got zombies, they've got like demons,
Hmm.
but they've still got like the slice of life that you can absolutely relate to.
Oh yeah. Well, and it was even cool, like because when I got into Buffy and watching I would say the first and second season, definitely the first season, they would take things from high school and turn it into, like, I wouldn't say full horror, but they turned it into fit into their genre of that scariness stuff, like the Invisible Girl, who kills people, and but she became invisible because nobody paid attention to her,
Hmm.
and they took those things that, like, because I was in high school at that time, so it really clicked with like the feelings and seeing these different people. It's like, okay, I could definitely see something like that going down, and you just connected it to it so much, but it turns it into this weird twisted version of it.
Absolutely. As someone, and it's very interesting to find somebody that started with Angel versus Buffy. I think you may be the first person I've ever had that's had that flip flop of start points.
Hmm.
Out of curiosity, do you have a favorite show? Like, do you prefer one over the other? Like, if you had to pick one to just watch instead of like both of them, could you do it?
Um, yeah, I would probably as a full show that like you would watch from season to season to season. I would actually go with Angel more because I think he had stronger full seasons. Getting into Buffy, there's like the first 3 seasons I absolutely loved, and then you get four's kind of weird, five is it was kind of weird, and then it got back into step I think on 6 and 7 to me personally. But with Angel, each season's very unique, very different styles, different characters, and they were definitely their own little arcs in each season. But then they would toss in things to throw back to previous seasons. So yeah, I would probably have to go with Angel over Buffy.
I have to say, I totally agree because I thought when Angel started, it was like a little bit rough, as
Hmm.
most first seasons are. But I feel like overall, like Angel had the stronger full seasons, like you said.
Hmm.
It has characters where God love them. I love that most of them are morally gray
Hmm.
on what they're trying to do or decide and which way they fall. It had the best character arc, in my opinion, with going from Buffy to Angel with Wesley.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like he's my favorite character out of like the Angel series. Is like Wesley just had that thing that was going on where he just evolved perfectly into the
Hmm.
character that's you see and understand everything that he's doing, and you're like, yeah, I can understand his motivations every single time.
Well, and when he comes in with Buffy, he's just such a tool. You, he just plays it so perfectly. You're like, I really hate this guy. So when he shows up in Angel, you're like, ah, come on, and thinking you're gonna get exactly what that is. And even like when he first steps in, he's not. He's still a bit of a tool, but not as you're like, huh, okay, I could kind of deal with this. And then you get into season, and he becomes just this badass character, and he's fantastic. Um, and you're rooting for him after a couple of seasons. And I don't even think it was that far. I think season 2 you start really digging him, and becomes more and more. And by the time it's all done, you're actually sad that he passes away.
Hmm.
And you're just like, you would have never thought of that if from watching Buffy to here, you would have never went, oh, I'm going to be really sad when Wesley passes away. Because I'm pretty sure in a couple of episodes in Buffy, you're going, could somebody just kill him?
Yep. Yep, definitely. It's definitely one of those characters that just the evolution from where he was in Buffy to how he ended up in Angel, and that like I think that was the heartbreaking one for the end of like the Angel season was like, everyone's not going to make it out with what they're stacked up against, and
Oh yeah,
why did it have to be Wesley?
yeah. Well, and even Cordelia is another one that was surprising to watch her arc through Buffy into Angel and everything, and she becomes more and more important, and and then even she's still even Cordelia, but she's also this heroine, and trying to help and actually becoming a good person. She's still got those Cordelia quirks that you see from Buffy and things like that, but she even has a really awesome arc throughout both shows.
Oh, and I think that's what is so great about Angel, and then being able to bring certain characters over is to just keep going with them from where they were at point A and just mold them and change them, and they ended up just even better characters, more developed, fully fleshed out characters. And I think the way that Angel had its stories presented with the like the darker style kind of
Hmm.
gave them that versus, and I hate to say it, with some of the characters on Buffy after like season 3, when they started getting into the college seasons and stuff, like some of them just kind of felt stagnant a little. Whereas like
Yeah.
you're not really grow like the characters aren't growing, whereas like you throw them into Los Angeles and they absolutely like blossomed in the dark.
Well, it's almost staying. It's like, looking at people, the difference between people that grow up and stay and live and never leave their hometown, which would have been staying on Buffy and Sunnydale, to becoming an adult and moving to a different city and going to Los Angeles. And so you kind of get that feel where some of that stuff from high school or sticking around your hometown stays, like in Buffy. And then you go into, like, you look at Cordelia and Wesley and Angel, and they become adults, even though Wesley was technically an adult already. But yeah, he becomes more of an adult, or more of a cool guy, I guess. But yeah.
Who do you have as your favorite characters from either of the shows?
Oh man, it's always, I would have to say Spike is one of my top favorites. Just because he comes in, and even just the story of his character is fantastic, because he wasn't supposed to last as long as he did.
Mm-hmm.
He was supposed to be taken out in the first season he was in, and they keep bringing him back more, and it's always interesting and kind of crazy, kind of kooky. And he's just, I've always loved his attitude. I always wish I had his attitude and the way he carries himself and everything. And then they bring him into the mix of Angel, and him and Angel together are my favorite episodes. I don't care what episode, what show, is if Spike and Angel get to deal with each other in one way or another, it's fantastic. Yeah, I'll watch those over and over again.
There's one that when you said that, the first episode that popped into my mind is the one where Angel becomes a puppet.
Oh yeah,
And
that's top favorite.
yeah, it's like Spike's reaction to that is just wonderful.
Yeah, don't do it, Spike. You're a wee little puppet man. Oh man. Now when we're done with the show, I'm gonna have to go back and watch all of these, because it's been a little while since I've binge watched both shows.
Yeah, it's been. I mean, my kids have seen the box sets that I have.
Mm-hmm.
They know that they're there, and I've made jokes on a few occasions. I'm like, man, when we start watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I hope you guys are ready to hear your names a lot, because you definitely have names that are exactly like some of the characters from that show.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
Now I have to ask you.
okay.
You have the box sets, because there's been a couple different versions. Which versions of the box sets do you have? Are they the big fold out ones that are like 2 inches thick when it's all folded in together?
Oh my gosh. I think the first 3 seasons of Buffy, I have the really big, chunky
Mm-hmm.
ones where they have those god awful animated menus you have to go through.
I love those.
And the
I
rest,
love those. Oh.
the four through, I think it's 4 through 7 for
Mhm.
Buffy, and then all of the Angel ones. Or no, the Angel ones are also those really big, chunky ones, except
Okay.
like the last 2 seasons, and then they're in the slimline DVD sets.
Yeah, because I think I have all the Angels in those slimmer ones. I have one of the I think I have like season 5 or 6 of Buffy in the big ones. I used to have all of them in the big ones, and then I don't know why I got rid of them for some reason. I think I was trying to save up money or for something, and it was when like FYE was taking trades in, so I was
Mhm.
trying to raise money for something or other. Probably something stupid because I was younger. But yeah, I miss those, and the animation things that you're talking about were so 90s RPG. Oh, it was fantastic.
It's funny because I have a lot of DVDs from that time period of like the late 90s and early 2000s where all of them, all the DVDs, the cool thing to do was have those animated menus and the
Yep.
like transitions, and then you have like Easter eggs if you click the right combination, and
Yeah.
I'm so glad that they're to the point now where it's just like, I want to watch the movie, or I want to watch the show. How fast can I get to it?
Yeah, yeah. It's those don't age well. I'll tell you that right off the bat. But it kind of made, at least for the Buffy ones and the Angel ones, it kind of made it it fit for them for some reason, and it made it. And if I had them right now, it's like that nostalgia thing. I think it kind of brings you back to that time, because I mean, we're how far, quite a bit of ways from those shows when they were popular. Now, like in 2020, it's crazy how far we are already.
It is because one of my most popular episodes of this podcast is the Buffy 20th anniversary episode of like when it first started airing
Oh
was I think
wow.
now we're into like 22 years removed from the first episode. And it's like I know that the thing lately has been the conversation around the reboot because they've talked
Mm,
about the reboot. Joss Whedon's not a part of the reboot.
uh,
And it's like, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen?
right.
And it's really intriguing because the other show that was really popular with Buffy at the time, Charmed,
Hmm.
just had their reboot, and
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with how it's doing, but I know that they have more than one season, so I guess that's good.
Yeah, I guess it's doing all right. It's so hard to tell anymore now because everything's, everybody's in their own little wheelhouse, and there's so much stuff to watch anymore, and there's so many ways to watch stuff anymore. I haven't heard much about it after it came out. There was a lot of stuff I was seeing, on its debut, but after that, I've seen a couple commercials here and there, but I haven't seen much. But yeah, I don't know. I've heard plenty of rumors of a reboot of Buffy, and I'm like, I don't think I could be interested in that. I'll give it a try just to see, but especially without Joss Whedon a part of it.
Hmm.
I mean, if you go and they have comic books of continuing seasons,
Yep.
afterwards, and Joss Whedon is attached to them, and you're getting the TV show in paper form, and you get that feel. And I think if he's not attached to it, you're gonna miss that feel to it. And I can't even describe what it is, but for us that grew up with the original shows, or watched the original shows, you're gonna something's gonna be missing.
Exactly. And I really and when Angel ended, the big stories were who's going to get spin-offs, and the two that were always floated were Faith, having a Faith show, and then
Hmm.
having a younger Giles show where it'd be like older Giles with Anthony Stewart Head, but like someone else playing him as a younger version. It'd be called Rippers.
Yeah, I heard about that
And
one.
it just they never came to fruition, and it's like I always wanted more from them, and just like you said, we got the comics, and I know that they just recently rebooted the comics to
Yes.
where it's like a whole nother shebang because in the comics that were the continuation, they kind of went to like some weird places, especially
Right.
like later ones and it was is getting to be a point of I'm losing the believability of what you're giving me.
Yeah, it went kind of goofy on some of them. I lost interest in it, but I have now. I haven't read it in like a month or two, but I was keeping up with this new version of Buffy and Angel. They rebooted both of them, and they were kind of, I believe, going together. And it was some of the same stories, but things were changed around. It was modern times, so you had phones and computers and more of that stuff, you know, and they twist some things. Different people show up at different times, and it was really neat, especially if you're such a diehard fan, to see this retelling of it. And I was really into it. I don't have the attention span to keep going to the comic shop every week, so I'm sure once they get like a big full graphic novel of it, I'll binge through each one. But it's been pretty cool, and I'm really digging what they're doing with it.
That's always the one thing when it comes to comics is I can't do one comic for
Mm-mm.
$5 anymore. It's just not I don't have that expendable income like I did back in my college days.
Hmm. Well, and it just, if you miss one week and then you got to find that one, because of course you're going to miss the one key story. Like I'm even a little lost in the Buffy one right now because I missed a comic and some things went down. And I'm like, okay, how do I miss so much in one comic? But it's so nice when you get the full graphic novel together, and it's like, so satisfying when you get to read the whole thing in one shot.
Absolutely. That's how I get my comics now is just I can't do the individuals. Just give it to me all together for $20 and I can do that and then I can put it on my shelf.
Hmm.
Now, it's funny that we're talking comics because the next thing that we're going to talk about started in comics, which I had no idea about, and then became a super popular cartoon show when I was a kid,
Hmm.
and that was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh yeah, I'm surprised you didn't know it was a comic originally.
I did not because when I was young, I knew the only comics I knew of were Archie. Like that was the comic that I always picked up and
Hmm.
read. But I didn't know Ninja Turtles was a comic for a long time
Yeah.
until I met someone probably in middle school, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I like Ninja Turtles, and one of my favorite characters is this rabbit." And he's like, "Oh, Usagi Yojimbo, I've got those comics." I was like, "What are you talking about?"
Oh yeah, and it's the turtles story and timeline and how all the different variations of them is fantastic. If you want to get into a whole, either YouTube it or do research yourself, but from where they started, and there is a different version of turtles for every generation.
Hmm.
My go-to ones are the early, or the what, 1980s cartoons. I believe it would be the same as
Yeah,
yourself.
the mid '80s, give or take. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's those ones, and then also the first three movies.
Hmm.
But then, like, I have younger half brothers. One is 7 years younger than me, and the other one's like 13 years younger than me. And they got into turtles after a while, and that was like the early 2000s. And their turtles were animated cartoons, but they looked like they were on steroids, and they had no pupils. But that cartoon is fantastic. I absolutely loved it, and it had some of the cheesiness from the my version, but it also had like realistic stories and actual consequences and stuff, and over like they had the long story arcs, and it was a really good cartoon, and I really got into it, and it was cool that my brothers and I shared the thing, because I would tell them about my cartoon when I was younger. So it was like one of those few things that we actually, because we have such a big age difference, that we could share at that time.
Hmm.
But and then there's Turtles. The original comic is a very gritty comic. It's all black and white, maybe some red in it, and they mess people up, and they're all very angry, and it's so insane. And now they've got the new Turtles. It's the newer cartoon that just came out the last year or so, and I thought it was a cool idea, and then I started watching it, and I couldn't get into it. They do the very choppy new artwork style,
Hmm.
kind of close to Adventure Time and some other cartoons like that, and it just, for some reason, my brain does not like that style. I have not figured it out why, but I just can't get into it. Yeah, and it makes me mad because, like, one of the original voice actors from my cartoon is a different turtle in this cartoon.
Oh, really?
I cannot think of his name off the top of my head, but he's also the man. He voiced one of the Animaniacs, and I
Okay.
believe in the my original cartoon, our original cartoon, he was Raphael. And then in this one, I can't remember who he's playing in this one, but he was one of the big people bringing it back for this new generation.
It is absolutely, and you definitely said it. Like, there's been Ninja Turtles since, I mean, the comics plus the '80s. We had the movies.
Hmm.
Shout out to Vanilla Ice for
Yep.
we had the movies. We had great video games. I cannot say enough about like the multiplayer video games, whether it was at the arcade that
Hmm.
I devoured, I put quarters in that machine till all time. And then when it finally made the port to whatever video game system it was, it's like, oh my gosh, I can play this forever now. I mean, there's some definitely like great video games. One, and you said that you had like the big steroided out one, Ninja Turtles that you
Hmm.
watched, and then my kids watched the ones that I think came after that one where they were all like high schoolish age. Like
Hmm.
April was in high school, and like Casey Jones was like Casey Jones and Donatello both like were in love with April, and
Right. Yeah, it was a little interesting with the love and with April. But yeah, I've watched quite a few of those episodes, and those have been very entertaining. And the animation spectacular because they did the 3D anime or like computer animated ones. It wasn't 2D flat ones like the older ones.
what was it about Ninja Turtles that drew you in back in the day? Like, I mean, for I know for me it was it's a great cartoon. It's quick, it's funny, and it
Hmm.
it was targeted towards me as a kid.
Right. For me, it was the martial arts. Um, Back when that was out and I was a kid, the guy that helped raise me when I was younger, he was my mom's fiance at the time. He was big into martial arts. He did a bunch of different stuff, was black belts and stuff, and all kinds of things. So he was introducing me into some of the martial arts. He introduced me into Bruce Lee, and I devoured every movie I could of Bruce Lee. So when I found out there was a cartoon where these heroes were using martial arts uh, to save the day, it was awesome. I couldn't believe it. And then it also taught you lessons. Like now, when I think about it now, it's like I learned a lot of my morals from cartoons back then because it was the lesson of the day or whatever. And they taught you, you can fight, but you don't start a fight. You
Mhm.
only fight when you're supposed to. You fight to protect others, and you listen to your lessons and things like that. And it was just this very interesting way to learn about martial arts, to learn about being a good turtle or person. And yeah, it just, and then I think it was a different animation style at that point too. It was very bright, very eye catching, and I just loved. When I was younger, I loved Michelangelo because he was the party dude. He loved pizza and skateboarding, and he had nunchucks like Bruce Lee. So that really caught my attention. I'm like, they got the same things. Nowadays, I'm more like Raphael with the anger issues, but back then it was the party guy.
That I mean, between like when I was younger is either Michelangelo because man, I love pizza, but I
Hmm.
also like Donatello just because he's into tech and stuff, and that was at that time like home computers were happening and video game consoles were hitting like houses, and so
Yeah.
it's always something cool. But yeah, as an adult, there's clearly like that shift of yeah, I identify with Raphael very much.
Yeah, yeah. It's and then even sometimes in certain versions, because I've always liked swords, so Leonardo caught my eyes quite a bit. But he was always the leader and the very serious one and everything like that.
Mhm.
But now, like the last couple of versions, I've kind of dug him a little bit more because he's learning to be a leader, and he's not always the best at it. He has to learn and figure out how to work with his other brothers that have such different personalities. So it's always fantastic to watch and how they go about the family dynamic and the leader dynamic. I think even in this the brand new one that's out now, it starts off with Raphael as the leader. So that's like a total twist because he's always been more the anarchy one and the one that causes trouble. So to see him, be the leader and Leonardo be I don't know if he was a troublemaker one, but he was more he wasn't so on point like the other ones where he's like if you watch it's TMNT, the animated or the 3D animated movie, he's
Mhm.
like real serious in that one and trying to be the best leader and stuff. And he's kind of annoying in that one. You're really rooting for Raph when they start fighting. It's like just hit him, Raph. Just take him out. I'm tired of him being in a stick in the mud too. I totally understand.
I always view when it comes to like some of the turtles, I view them with connections to Marvel characters.
Mm-hmm.
Like Leonardo, I always feel he's like Cyclops to Raphael's Wolverine,
Oh
or if
yeah.
we're doing Avengers, it's Leonardo to Captain America to Raphael's Hawkeye. Like
Yeah.
at least comic book version.
Mm-hmm.
It's so like reminiscent of that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Um, Yeah, it's always interesting to how they do it, and I always felt bad for, especially like when I was growing up, I always felt bad for Donatello, and even now he's still getting. They've made him a little bit cooler here and there sometimes, but they always like he's way into the nerd stuff. So like when I was growing up, nobody wanted to be Donatello. And that's
Right.
like it's so messed up because Donatello builds a supercomputer out of trash. Yeah. Like today I'm like if I was able to do that, it would be fantastic. But back when I was a kid, I'm like, no, I want to be the goofy dude hitting people with nunchucks. And they've in certain ones they've gone it where they made him a little bit cool. I think he wasn't as nerdy in the version that your kids watched. He's still a little bit, but the Michael Bay versions, he's like super nerdy. And I think in this newer cartoon, he's kind of a cooler nerd. He's like the techno cool guy that can rebuild things and everything, and they play it off better. And it's more of the current day geek or anything like that that's into that stuff. I think they went better with this one, but man, when I was a kid, if you picked Donatello, you were getting beat up.
Yeah, Donatello was always like the last turtle that anybody wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, it's funny you brought up the Michael Bay version because I have not you know what? I might have tried to have watched or maybe caught bits and pieces of it. I don't think I've watched the full movie of either one, and
They're rough.
I don't know. Like there are times when I look at the movies when they come out and they're properties from back then, and I don't get it sometimes. Like even with Transformers, there was part of the movie, like the first Transformers movie, where you can't tell the Autobots versus the Decepticons apart because they both are the same color.
Right.
Like, I
Well,
don't know who's who.
and that's getting into how Michael Bay makes movies, and if you watch some of like honest trailers or a couple other things like that on YouTube, they point out all the things that you see in every Michael Bay movie, and I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. So the Michael Bay movies are very interesting for TMNT. Um, I liked the first one. I actually enjoyed the first one. I thought they were going to go with a cool direction. It was cool to see different turtle, like each turtle was very unique to their own, whatever they were, like species, or
Hmm.
they didn't all look the same like the cartoon. So that was really cool. Um, the faces could have used some work and were kind of terrifying, especially when they first came out. But I'm such a turtle fanatic that I'm like, whatever. Mikey looks like something out of my nightmares, but come on, we'll give it a try. We'll give it a try. And then the first one was pretty good. I'm like, cool. That was I like that a lot. Let's see what they do for the second one. The second one was really rough. And then what really made me bad about the second one was they got Arrow. They got Stephen Amell to be in it to be Casey Jones. And Casey Jones has always been the coolest dude, the tough guy, especially in some of the older movies. And they really messed up. They messed up Casey Jones, the character himself, and then they messed up, because Stephen Amell was hot with Arrow right at that time. They messed him up. I'm like, how do you not do something right with Stephen Amell? And he was kind of whiny and kind of just goofy and not really a tough guy. Just kind of, I don't know. I don't know how you mess it up. Now they made it look right with like the only thing I'll give that movie credit for was Bebop and Rocksteady. They looked fantastic. Their origins is kind of weird, but they looked fantastic, and the characters were very reminiscent to the cartoons I grew up with. But the rest of the movie was, whew, It was just terrible, just terrible.
Oh my goodness. Now I almost want to like suffer through them just to see
It's
how
worth watching at least once. I definitely think the first one was pretty decent. Was it amazing? No, but it was good, and it was a good version. And I've really liked what they've done with the turtles in the cartoons, and I think even the comics as well. Is they have the multi universe thing, so
hmm
every turtle that you have seen come out actually does exist. They're just in different universes, and in the cartoons they have worked together, and they have crossed over shows, and they've brought in my version, my younger brother's versions. I believe even the ones that your kids have grown up with. They did a crossover with my versions, and then they've even brought in the original black and white comic book ones that are terrifying. Those are that's Turtle Prime. So the Michael Bay ones do fit in there. They just never played with anybody else, thank God. But it's nice because you can look at it, and I even look at it with like comic book movies and everything. You watch this comic book, and they're like, "Oh, well, that's not like the comic." I'm like, "They're two different universes." And most of the time, that's how I've split it up in my head to be able to watch this stuff. Because there's certain movies that they really just mess things up and everything. Um, but I try not to nitpick because it's like this is a different adaptation. You don't want to see the same exact thing over and over again. You want to see different people's takes on it. So now with Turtles, it's like, okay, this is just a dark universe that sits in the corner. We don't talk about it.
Oh my goodness. That's always something cool that now I'm gonna have to try and track down those episodes because I love when they do crossover things like
Oh,
that.
and they're fantastic. They first, I don't know if it was the first, but it's the first I can remember it. The ones that my brothers grew up on, the picture I sent you over social media. That's the first crossover I can remember, and they got to meet the versions that I grew up with, and that was really cool because the ones that the 1980s ones, they're viewed as the goofy kind of silly campy ones.
Mhm.
So they like to play around. They only focus on eating pizza. They can fight and stuff, and they do well, but they're more fun, go happy lucky. The ones my brothers grew up with are, very stressed and roided out and have no
Mhm.
pupils. So they view the ones we grew up with as a joke. And then I don't think I ever caught the one because they did a crossover with the version that your kids grew up with, and they got to meet. I think they met maybe both versions because I know in the big because I think it's always Shredder trying to take out, at least in the first one I saw, Shredder's trying to take out the multiverse, and that's how you find out that Michael Bay's versions are in it. This version's in it. This version's in it. There's like a plush one. I think they even snuck in. Do you remember the stage thing where they were like rock guys?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually a universe as well. They just show like a little picture of it with all of them, but it's actually a universe. But they're fantastic. I love seeing them, and they even do when your version or your kid's version of Turtles and our kids' versions of Turtles meet. They go into the 2D realm, so you get to see the 3D Turtles as 2D drawings, and it's so cool because it keeps their characteristics, but it's in this more cartoony style.
Oh my goodness, that is mind blowing. It the only thing I have to say is like I always try to get my kids into like the shows that I grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
So when they got into Ninja Turtles, I was like, "Oh, you should check out my Ninja Turtles."
Oh
So I pulled it
no.
up on YouTube and they laughed so much about how the turtles looked.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Those aren't Ninja Turtles." And they did the same thing when we got into Voltron on Netflix. And I said, "Oh, I used to watch Voltron back when I was a kid. Here's how it looked." And they're like, "Those aren't even close to what those characters look like." I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, you guys have it really good now that you're
Oh yeah.
growing up with this stuff."
I've even caught a few episodes of our old one of the Ninja Turtles. I'm like, oh, they are campy and they're goofy, but I still love them. I actually, a fun fact, I'm sitting in my art cave right now where I do all my artwork, and I have this framed poster, and I did my style of the Turtles, but it's more based off of the 1980s cartoon. And it's four different panels. Each one has the color of the bandana behind them, and then it's like this cool version of them. But I have each panel signed by the original voice actors from the cartoon, and they put in, hey Josh, and they put like a saying from that particular character, and then they write the character's name and then their names, and it's fantastic. It's one of my most cherished signed pieces of my work that I have to this day.
That is awesome.
Oh yeah.
So, we talked about the Ninja Turtles, superheroes and multiverses, and the other fandom that we're going to talk about is the Marvel Cinematic Universe,
Oh
which,
yeah.
I mean, who would have thought all those years ago when Iron Man first came out that we would be sitting here now, like 20 something movies later, with an established cinematic universe with the possibility of multiverses, because they've started teasing and talking about that with
Hmm.
Endgame. Like, were you, I know, like, we've talked about comics, like, were you a Marvel comic guy before the Marvel movies, or is it just that the movies just draw you in, whereas you don't really need the comics?
So I knew some stuff here and there. I read some stuff off on and off. I knew a lot of the characters. I've never been like, because I've always had trouble just like making sure I get every comic and reading every comic and sticking to the storyline and stuff like that. Um, but I knew a good roundabout of everything, and I've always been Spider Man's one of my top superheroes. So I've always known stuff here and there. So when Iron Man was announced, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's awesome. I'm definitely down for it. The trailers looked amazing. They added AC/DC into the mix of Iron Man. I'm like, why was this not a thing beforehand? Um, so I was already kind of into it, and then these movies started coming out, and it just drew me even more into it, and made me go back and look for certain stories here and there, certain graphic novels, because oh, they're gonna do this one. All right, well, let's see, like, Civil War. Okay, I'll go back and read some of that just to see what the similarities are, to catch certain things here and there, those iconic scenes that they rip right from the comics. No, the story didn't lead right into that, as comic book form, but you could still get these little nods to the comics here and there. And yeah, as soon as Iron Man came out, I was hooked.
It was definitely coming from somebody like I used to read the comics and then fell out of them, just as the price wasn't there and I couldn't do it. I love, the Spider-Man movies were good-ish. The
At
X-Men
least the
movies
first
after
two.
that, yeah, and after X2, it kind of was like, okay,
Yeah.
eh. So, they had Iron Man come out and I was like, man, I don't really like Iron Man. He was never one of my favorite Avengers.
Right.
Uh, but I watched it and I was like, okay, I like it. And then, they started rolling out. There's like the Hulk, which was okay, not the best of the MCU, but without
Yeah.
the Hulk, you don't get some of the other things going on.
Right.
And then it just started turning over, and they announced the Avengers, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, they're pulling this off? I mean, they had 2 Iron Man movies, a Thor movie, a Hulk movie, and a Captain America movie, and yeah, I guess we're gonna get the Avengers, and you can't believe it, and
Yeah. And you know, it was cool to watch Iron Man, to see them take it seriously. Because even some of the Spider-Man stuff, like at the time, it was really good. At least the first two. But looking back at them now, they've got a little bit of a cheesiness to them here and there, and some of the X-Men's the same thing. Like, they just, you watch Iron Man, and you go, okay, they're taking this different direction. They're making it more of a real world, and with superheroes into it. You're not jumping into this fake world. And I remember just losing, I knew it was a big thing, but I didn't understand how big it was when Nick Fury shows up in the end of Iron Man. And you could never imagine what that scene would turn into so many years later. You've got nothing. It's like, okay, that was pretty cool. They're doing something. You don't really fool, and then you get more and more each movie, and then Avengers comes out, and it's just you can't even imagine like all these movies are so ingrained to my life now. I can't even imagine them not being around. And it's been fantastic to watch, and it's still fun to go back and do the binge watch of from the beginning all the way through because I did it for Endgame coming out, and I did as many as I could. I skipped a couple here and there, but it's been really cool. And then them taking chances on some comic book properties that nobody thought would be great, like Guardians of the Galaxy. I saw that and went, "Are you kidding me?" It looked
Mhm.
cool, but I'm like, the one dude's a raccoon.
That I was gonna bring that up because, they're number one, they didn't have like, Spider-Man wasn't theirs, the X-Men wasn't theirs,
Mhm.
Fantastic Four wasn't theirs, those were, like, those big properties at the time. Iron Man was B level, Captain America was B, like, the Avengers weren't the shining gemstone that they were at times in the Marvel Universe,
Yeah.
and then they get successful, and you're like, "Okay, you know what? Everyone's gonna get their own movie, whatever, whatever." But then when they announced that they're doing Guardians of the Galaxy, which is one of my favorite comic books,
Oh, okay.
like, growing up as a kid and even, like, the new version that was being released even like, in the 2000s and, mid 2000s, there was it was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, you're gonna take the Marvel Universe into space?" And not only
Mhm.
that, you're taking it with, like, the character like, the new roster of characters where it's like, "How are you gonna make this work?"
Yeah.
And to see it play out on screen and to have the reception that it did, it blew me away. And even them going with, Scott Lang as Ant-Man versus Hank Pym,
Mhm.
like, that blew me away. And how they did Ant-Man as, like, a heist movie versus, like, a standard superhero movie, I loved it. Like,
That has
I
been
loved
my
that
favorite
they
thing
were
over the years too. Is they make superhero movies, but it's a heist movie with superheroes. It's a Captain America, Winter Soldier was like a what were they calling it then? Almost like a spy movie, but it had whatever movie aspects it was plus the superheroes. It's been so cool for them to take different types of movies and then just toss a little bit of superhero stuff into it and then see what happens. That's been a lot of fun over the last few years.
Do you have a favorite or like? And I know with so many movies, it's hard to nail down one. Like, do you have a top three or a top five that you're like, these are my go-to Marvel movies?
Yes. So, like, I'll base it off of like if I'm in the art cave painting something and I just want to watch something that I usually turn stuff on, uh, just to hear something. Not music doesn't always work, so sometimes I gotta toss something on the DVD player or something.
Hmm.
So I think Iron Man would be right at the top, the original Iron Man. Um, let's see, either of the Spider-Man, definitely Spider-Man Far From Home, or no, not Spider-Man, Spider-Man Homecoming. I really like that one and that's one of those examples of a doing a type of movie, adding superheroes in it. They did a high school teenage movie with a superhero aspect into it.
Hmm.
And like I said, I've always been a huge Spider-Man fan. So to finally have a Marvel style movie with Spider-Man, I love that one. I'll watch that one all the time. Um, Trying to think what would be another favorite. I gotta say, Captain America Winter Soldier. I can like you're flipping through the channels, and anytime I see that, I don't care where it's at in the movie, I'll just leave it on there because they really stepped up the fighting stuff into that one and the fighting choreography, which I've always been always catches my eyes through movies ever since I was younger.
Mhm.
Um, the fight scene with Bucky, and when he's still Winter Soldier, you don't know who he is yet, and Cap, with he's only got his shield, he doesn't have the full outfit on, and they're doing like the punching back and forth in the middle of the street, and Bucky's got that knife, and he goes and drops it from one end to grab it to try to slice him in the other spot. Oh, I
Mhm.
love that scene. I watch it over and over again. It's fantastic. So those would probably be my top three. I've watched Avengers a lot. I think that would sneak into number four. The only thing with Avengers is I hate Captain America's outfit in that movie so much. I don't know who was smoking or drinking what, but I just the only thing I have been able to like kind of chill my brain out about it is that because somebody tried to explain it, like fan theories and stuff, um, is that Coulson helped make that suit. So he was such a fanboy that he made this kind of like idolized version of it, and it's kind of goofy. So yeah, it's anytime I watch that movie back, or you go in and they had in Endgame, they go back in time for that. You're just like, God, that outfit was terrible. Because I actually like the when he's working for Shield in Winter Soldier, the first scene where it's all the dark blue one with
Yeah.
the gray accents. I thought that one was really sharp because it actually made him look a bit stealthy. Not like the American flag coming to punch you in the face. Yeah, it's like, are you trying at all, Steve?
With we had Endgame, and
Hmm.
now we've had an almost 8-month break at this point with chilling. We're
Right,
we're chilling.
our
We got
breather. We're still.
right. I think by the time this episode comes out, I think we're going to be on the verge of having Black Widow in the theaters.
Mm,
Um, what are you looking forward to with this new set of movies that they've announced? Because they've announced a lot, and a lot of
yeah.
it is off the wall. Like there's characters where I'm like, oh, you're getting a movie. I'm
Good
really
for
interested.
you. Yeah, there's the number one thing I'm excited about is that it's a new launching off point. So we're done with that 10-year arc of building up for Thanos and getting him in. I hope there is some kind of arc, but I'm hoping it's smaller arcs, and it's not. I hope movies are a little bit more independent from each other.
Hmm.
Um, I'm really looking forward to Black Widow. That movie's been looking really interesting. I just watched a breakdown trailer or a breakdown video on YouTube about it. Um, I'm really digging that one. I'm curious to see if because there's been some people saying, oh, they're going to bring her back and she's going to be back. I'm like, she had a pretty impactful death. I just don't see her coming back. So I'm interested to see where they're going with that. I'm very happy that Spider-Man gets to stick around for at least one more film by himself, and then I think one or two team-up films. So I'm
Hmm.
curious to see what they're going to do with him. If I really hope that Disney figures out a way to buy him from Sony so he can be a mainstay. I hope that little squabble between the two companies didn't mess up big plans for him.
Hmm.
Because he's just I love Tom Holland as him. I love this version of Spider-Man, and my heart broke when the news first came out that they weren't gonna work together and there wasn't gonna be a three. I'm like, no, you can't do this to me. You at least have to finish it off of some sort. I don't care how you do it, but I'm really excited to see how he what is in store with him and just I mean there's so much going on and I really hope because we've got all these Disney Plus shows coming out
Hmm.
and they're supposed to be more involved with the movies. And I hope that is the case because I love the concept of Agents of Shield when it came out, but it was so far removed from the movies itself that you're like this you're not you could be in your own universe, you could be a different universe in the multiverse and it wasn't even around yet.
Right.
So I'm hoping these movies, whatever happens in these new shows affects the movies a little bit more than, because even like the Netflix stuff, it was cool. You had it coming one way. You had the movie stuff coming into the show, but nothing from the shows went into the movies, and it was
Right.
kind of disappointing.
Yeah, it's I mean, I'm really interested to see where they're going to go. I know that, this year we just have two, which is Black Widow at the start, and then we have the Eternals movie, which is I'm not familiar with any of them at all. So I know it's like a time travel, like
Hmm.
seeing them throughout history and just experiencing that. The one I'm looking forward to the most is Shang-Chi. I'm
Oh
really
yeah,
interested in that one. And then whatever comes out of WandaVision and then her being with Doctor Strange in his sequel,
yeah.
because it's like that multiverse of madness. And I'm like, I really want to see where they're going to go with that. I mean, Endgame set it up with like Loki having the time stone, and
Hmm.
so I'm very interested to see. Plus, like their What If series that they're
Oh,
going to
I
do
can't
of
wait
like
for the What If series. That's going to be so cool, and I love the art style that they're going with that one. So I can't wait for that. I don't see that one impacting much of the whole cinematic universe, but that's just going to be a fun one, and
it is.
and they got like all the original people to do the voices,
Hmm.
so it's you know you're not just getting random people here and there. But I think that's going to be a big hit, and I can't wait for that. And then the Shang-Chi, as long as they focus on the martial arts of it, it's going to be great. I will definitely be into it because you do not, I mean, we have powerhouse people, we have magic, we have, some martial arts stuff here and there, but we do not have basically a kung fu martial arts movie with a side of heroes into it. So I'm really
Hmm.
hoping they do that right and focus on the martial arts part of it, and I think it would be a really cool movie.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. And then of course, I know you and I probably watched Blade way back when with
Oh
Wesley
yeah.
Snipes, and I'm waiting to see how they're going to present Blade, and if they're going to feed him into the universe or if it's going to be something else. But man, when they made that announcement, I was like, oh, I
Yeah,
didn't ever expect that to come back.
I'm hoping that this is a turn to some of the movies to a little bit of the darker side, because you can't do Blade like Spider-Man. You can't, he's got to be this darker side. I don't think they can go all the way as like when the Wesley Snipes one was going on. But I'm really curious to see how they bring him into the fold. There's a variety of different ways, and one of them can even be including Spider-Man. And then we got Morbius coming out, and I'm like, when I heard about it, I'm like, okay, whatever. It's one of those ones you don't really know the character, you're not really into it, and then I saw the trailer. I'm like, you have my attention now.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So that, and I love, just with the trailer alone, the music that plays into it. And if you really watch that trailer and focus on the music and how it plays into the trailer, it brings so much to it. And I hope that they use that song through the movie, because it's actually one of my favorite tunes on the piano. So to see it part of this movie, it's like, oh, okay, this is going to be cool. And he looks great. I mean, that little view that you see of his, full vampired out face, he looks just like the comics. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where they're going to go with it. I know that there's like the little drop the little continuation from Spider-Man of like, most wanted, and you
Hmm.
get the little posters in there. So
Yeah, the
I'm interested
murderer,
to
and then you
Yep.
get what's his face as the Vulture again, which I was like, yes, yes, yes. I absolutely love that character, and how he plays him, Michael Keaton.
Absolutely. Yeah. So on top of all of this that we've got, you do phenomenal art.
Thank you.
How did you get like have you always been into art like at a young age, or was it something that you kind of discovered as you went through, like School?
Yeah, I dabbled in it as a kid. So I got it's kind of like a family talent that's gone through my dad's side of my family. My grandmother was extremely talented artist. But she only did it as a side hobby most of the time. But she's done some fantastic paintings, acrylics and oils. She used to be able to just I would sit there with her and I would ask for a sketch, and she'd be able to sketch whatever I asked for out in her own style. And then I've seen some of my dad's artwork, but I didn't get to see much of it. I've seen some things here and there, but my dad was a very talented artist, and again, he didn't get to do much with it. So I had it through family, and I originally figured out I had something, the ability to do something when I was in like middle schoolish or maybe like late elementary. I was bored one summer day, and I had these little Looney Tunes stickers that I collected, and from a vending machine, and it they were really tiny. So I was bored, and for some reason I decided to redraw the characters bigger, and I drew them out like really well, and I showed my mom, and she thought I traced them because they looked really good. And I showed her the originals. I'm like, no, this is what I looked off of. So like that was the first little hint. That looking back at it now, I didn't really figure out what I could do. I dabbled with stuff here and there. I didn't have the best artist teachers, in middle school. When I got into high school, though, they're like, "Oh, you can pick you can pick certain classes." And I found out there was an art class, and I found out there was multiple art classes. I'm like, I want all those. They're like, well, you got to do this one first. I'm like, okay. So I was in, freshman and sophomore year, I did one class each. Junior year, I did two art classes at one time. And then senior year, I got into the senior studio. So going through high school, I started to figure out that I had a talent. I did certain things, and I would do them pretty fast. And the other kids would kind of look at me going, how the hell did you just do that? I go, what do you mean? You can't do that? And it was kind of clicking that I had a talent for it. And so I kept doing more and more stuff and doing more things. And it just came naturally to me. In high school, especially like the last 2 years, school was very easy to me. So I could get work done real fast. I got A's on all, I was an A and B student honor roll. But I was into my art, and I was into doing the art. So as soon as our teachers would give us time to work on homework or something like that at the end of class, I would pull out my artwork and start working on it. And my teachers were all cool with it. Like all of them understood who I was, how I did, and I got A's and B's. But the other kids would try to, give me crap about it. And like I remember one teacher going, what'd you get on your last test? And the guy's like, a C. Or it was a girl, and she's like, a C. And he goes, Josh, what'd you get on your last test? I'm like, an A. And he looks at the girl and he goes, that's why he gets to work on his artwork.
Yep.
And then after high school, I actually got out of it because my senior year, I did we were supposed to have a senior studio. You only needed like 10 pieces to take up a table to show off this like show at the end of the year for all the school. I did 20 plus pieces. I had 2 tables. And my table was full. I had stuff hanging off the ceiling, on the wall, everywhere. And I got the same grade and the same everything as the person that like barely did anything. So I got turned off of art for a good year or so. Got back into it, and I grew up, born and raised in Ohio, and I got back into it like right before we moved to Florida. Moved to Florida, started going to conventions, and about 7 years ago, I started hitting conventions and kind of watching the artist alley and going, these people aren't paid from Marvel or this. They're coming out on their own. They're doing their own thing. And I could do stuff like this. So I started talking to people here and there and figuring out how to get into it, and started doing my own stuff. And 7 years later, I'm doing what I'm doing now.
That is definitely a journey. I can totally understand, putting in all that effort and then having the same grade as somebody that's just providing like the bareness, like bare basics.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was rough, and me and my teacher got into quite a few arguments. Yeah, it was very interesting. It definitely burned me out, but I'm glad I got back into it. But it took a little while. But I just started. I've always had to doodle, even when I was like real young, like elementary school. And we did not have iPads, phones, and all that stuff. Now I feel
Hmm.
really old anymore. But my mom's way of keeping me entertained or behaved was doodling. We would go to restaurants with the paper mat still on the table, and so
Yep.
I'd flip that over. She'd hand me a pen, and I'd start sketching stuff and drawing and messing around, and I never made a peep. As long as my hands were busy and I was getting to do something, I never made a peep or caused trouble. So yeah, my mom even to this day will go out because she loves to go out to the beach, and I'll go out with her and my wife, and they just love to sit at the beach or their winery and just look at the ocean. And I'm sitting there twitchy as hell. So like, my mom will bring a deck of cards so I can play with, or she bought me a sketchbook for Christmas so we can make sure it's with me so I can sketch. Because as soon as I have something to do, I could sit out there all day too. But
Hmm.
if we're just sitting there looking at the ocean, I'm like, I'm bored now.
Yep. Right there with you. Like, not a beach person at all. I mean,
I love
my
looking
kids
at
want to
it.
go. Yeah, my kids want to go and do stuff, and like my wife enjoys going out there. But for me, it's like, man, there's something like I need something. But yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now, your art, I said at the beginning, your art style is so unique and different than what you generally come across at conventions or even just seeing stuff on the net. Like, how did you develop your style that you have?
um, I don't really know. It's kind of just come as I go, and I add little stuff here and there, and change it up. I've always wanted, because I looked at Artist Alley, and this is no offense to the people that are on Artist Alley. I have quite a few friends there, but a lot of times you're looking at a row of different artists, and there's 10 different artists, but you cannot tell when one table starts and another one ends, and it's I've always wanted to be different. I've always wanted my artwork to catch people's eyes. So when I first started out, I went real messy and real strong with the line, like the outlines of something. So I'd take that line and make it go farther and off the person, and crisscross the lines, and I started realizing that really made the artwork stand out, and gave me a bit of difference. And I started making messy backgrounds a little bit. And then a year or two after that, I met a fellow artist. His name is EJ, but he goes by Ness. He's a very talented artist, and he had a lot of splatter style, very messy. It almost looked all like graffiti artwork style, which
Hmm.
graffiti always caught my attention. And I really liked it, so I wanted to incorporate that more into my artwork. So I started doing this splatter style with the paint dripping, and figuring out my own way of doing it. Um, so I've added that into it. And then I started blending both of them together. And then, yeah, it just, and you've seen quite a few pieces, and if you go through my Instagram, it does look like a few different artists work on one Instagram, but it's all me. It just depends on my mood. The current painting I'm working on is for my wife and I's bedroom, and it's a landscape scene, and it's this pier going out into the water, and with trees in the background and sky, and there's no splatter, there's no craziness, but there's still that little bit of messy chaos style to it, but it still looks like a pier going out into the water with the woods and everything. So it's been 7 years of just playing and figuring out what I can do, and then the bringing in the live painting aspect a year ago totally changed the game, and has made me have to go faster, work differently, and create even a more different style to work in this fast-paced environment now.
One of the questions I got for you
Hmm.
is you do a lot of the you do I don't know if it's fair to call them challenges, but you have like a goal of like doing 100 mini prints or
Hmm.
mini canvases or Um, how do you get the inspiration for what you're going to do on the day? Like, do you come up with a list of like, okay, I'd love to do like these characters and I'm just going to eventually get to them? Or is it just, you wake up and you're like, I'm going to paint so and so today?
It's a little bit of both. It just depends on like the last year or so has been a little bit different um, with the live painting aspect being mixed into things. So I do have like this ongoing list because my brain's always going. I work a full time day job, but when I'm working on certain things, my mind drifts a little bit, and I'll come up with ideas. Oh, I want to paint this, or oh, I want to do this. So I write down a list, and then like if an upcoming event would fit that idea, I go and do that idea, and I check it off my list. Other times it's I straight up wake up in the morning or have an idea in the middle of the night or randomly talking to people, and they're like, well, what's next? And I'm just like, oh, I'm going to paint this next. It's a nice mix of both. I never know what I'm going to do next. Like I have 4 live painting sessions in the month of February, and the first 2 are next weekend, the 8th and 9th, live at Space Coast Comic Con. So I've got like 4 different ideas, and I got to come up with 2. So it's just whatever's in the mood to hit me. If it's the mini canvases, sometimes it's like testing out characters that I've never done before or testing out a style because it's such, it's an 8 by 10 canvas. So if it goes really wrong, I can just chuck it in the garbage and not have to worry about wasting 20, 30 plus dollars from a big canvas.
Hmm.
So I kind of get an idea of, oh, I can do this in this small version and I can take it to a bigger one. So there's been a lot of playing in the mini canvas realm that leads into a bigger canvas down the road.
Okay. I know for me, there have been a few pieces where the moment I saw them, I was like, dang, I want them. And I want them a lot. And I just want to call out 2 of them, which is one is the iconic scene from Into the Spider-Verse with Miles.
Hmm.
That shot, that perfect shot of just him in the city.
Hmm.
And then the other one is from Tangled, which is just the lanterns in the sky. And it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
man, like the one thing that I love is your art style does change and evolve so differently. Like your fairy collection
Hmm.
is so different and unique, and I love looking at them.
Thank you.
And there's just you have like the Power Rangers one, and I'm pretty sure you have all of the signatures on that one too now, right?
Yes, I have a poster version of that hanging up in the art cave, and I have everybody's signature from the first generation, except for the Yellow Ranger, of course, because she
Hmm.
passed away. And then I have like 3 of them from that second generation, where you get like Rocky and a couple different Rangers. But yeah, I've got
Hmm.
everybody. Most recent one was Kimberly, Amy Jo Johnson.
Yep.
She was at Tampa Bay Comic Con this past year, so I finally was able to finish my collection.
And that is just so incredible. Like
Thank you.
to just have between like that plus the turtles, and it's like, dang, like.
Oh, and there's so much in here. I actually started, I think it was last year, because I've been doing more of the teaming up with Hanging with Web show. And so I can go in and I save money. I live paint, but I don't have to buy a booth. So I have a little bit more play money, and I've been finding voice actors of my favorite cartoons. And I'll do a mini canvas of the character that I love of them. And then I have them sign it to me, and I get to keep it. So, like right now, I have 2, 4, 6, 7 of them sitting in this room. So I've got to meet Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman from the animated series, Billy West from Doug Funny. I've got Rocco's signature, Darkwing Duck, and Courage the Cowardly Dog. So I've gotten to meet these people, and they're like, "Oh, I've never seen this before. Where'd you get this?" I'm like, "I painted it myself." They're like, "Really?" And we talk a little bit, and it's so cool because they really dig the artwork and the style and everything. And then like Courage the Cowardly Dog, I met that voice actor at Phantasm Orlando this past October, And I had him sign one of my mini canvases, and then I live painted a thing of Courage and the Old Man live at the convention. And he actually got to sit and watch me paint it while he was doing his interview with Hanging with Web Show. And then we brought him back on to the live feed when I was all done and showed him the painting. And he absolutely loved it. And he went and signed that one for me as well. So that one is now hanging up in my kitchen area.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking back at your what you've done since you started, like, is there any special pieces where you're like that one right there was like you just in like some special art space of, I don't know, just getting everything the way that you wanted it to work out?
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think. See, the bad thing is I've painted so much and I've created so much in this past 7 years. I actually forget some paintings that I've done. I've had people come up, oh, I have this piece. I'm like, oh, I totally forgot about that one. Um, the first thing because I get this question asked a few times here and there, different variations and everything. The one that always sticks out into my mind right off the bat is it's called A Long Night, and it is Batman, and he's in the center of the painting, and it's a big 24 by 40 inch canvas, and you're kind of looking at him over his shoulder a little bit, almost like you're playing one of the Batman video games, and
Mhm.
it is a whole army of Batman iconic villains. Harley, Joker, Bane, uh, 20 different villains, 15 up front, 5 are hidden in the back in this group, like another group of bad guys. I absolutely love that painting. I was very sad to see that painting finally go, but it has been one of my all-time favorite ones. So that one's definitely at the top of my list. I did a really cool one last year. It was live, and it came out really cool, and it helped out a good cause. I actually got to work with Orlando City soccer teams, one of their clubs, the Ruckus. I did a event with them in Kitchen Killers, and I live painted at their event that was raising money for charity. And it was like it had their logo on it. It had the Ruckus logo, the soccer ball, and some other stuff. And I think I even fit like I guess a gentleman that passed away but was a big supporter of the group wore like a purple Deadpool mask, so I fit him in there as honor to him. And when it all came together, it looked really fantastic. It was a really hard painting to do and took a little bit longer than I thought it would. But after I was done and just sitting there looking at it, I'm like, that is sharp. That is really cool. So those are the two that pop off like right off the top of my head.
I guess my last question is, you do the live shows, you do the conventions. What, like, in like you've been doing it for 7 years, what is the future for you as an artist? Like, what would you like to have like happen, like with your art, or with your art style, or with just in general with people and your art?
Right now I'm still in this, I call it like a redesign phase. The conventions have gone a little bit weird, for me the last couple of years. I cut them down to like barely any anymore. My new focus now is trying to get the live painting sessions going, get into what I'd really like to do is to get, so many live painting things booked a month or whatever, and be able to go to different businesses, eateries, pubs, breweries, weddings, like different events like that, and live paint at all these different locations, and make that more of a career. Because I really love doing those. I love going out and meeting the people, and I'm more selling the live painting aspect itself than trying to sell the paintings. I'm at this point where I'm kind of tired of trying to sell artwork, uh,
Hmm.
because people don't always have the room, the money, this, that. There's always these excuses, but people love watching it be created. So and it's been really fun where it's a nice test to myself, and it's always fun to go into different places and create something and have people just come up to me and go, "How the hell did you do that?"
Hmm.
So if I could get that in more and get like the my J Bauer Art Batmobile on location at more places and everything like that, I would love to do that more in the next couple of years. Is get away from the cons more, and go do my own thing at different locations around Florida, and hopefully, out of the state more, and wherever people let me paint.
It's definitely something that I don't think, from my experience on social media, I've never seen like a live painting like that before, where you go into the business and within while that you're there, paint a fully realized painting. Like,
Mhm.
I've not seen that.
Yeah, and it's definitely I'm in this phase because I did it with the Kitchen Kills a lot over the past year, and I'm kind of breaking off into my own a little bit more starting this year. But trying to get people to realize what I do and what I am capable of and what exactly, like, because some people think I'm coming in and teaching people how to paint. I'm like, no, 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 no. I cannot teach anybody how to do this. I don't even know how I do it half the time. Um, but it's getting around this, getting to people to realize what I am offering them. And it's even not even just the live painting stuff too, because I go live on Facebook. So I'm basically offering advertising. You bring me in, I talk about where I'm at. I talk about the build up to it. Afterwards, I bring you up on camera if you wanted to. If like I'm in a restaurant, you can come on and we can talk about your food. You can have me taste test food because I love taste testing food. I love food. I love food more than artwork. But and we talk about what's going on. We joke back and forth, and you're paying for the live painting thing and to bring me in and bring something new into your restaurant. But I'm also bringing in 1,000+ people into your restaurant that at that time, and helping you get into a different circle of people, and get your name out there even more. Even if you're a bigger company and everybody knows you, there's still places that have never seen the inside of your restaurant, or don't know if it's for them. So if they know you'll let me in there to do my thing and we show off some food, people will go, "Ooh, I really want to try that," and you can get some new folks just that way.
Absolutely. It's such a different approach to it, and it's so cool just to watch, and then to like you said, to be able to really just get on there depending on which business it is and just talk about the business, and you're getting that exposure of being able to talk to an audience where you might not have ever reached them before.
Oh yeah, and in this wheelhouse and this group of people that we've collected between myself, Kitchen Killers, and Hanging with Web Show, and a few other shows here and there. If you get into our circle, or if you feature us, or feature me, or the guys, you're getting some hardcore people dedicated to you, and you're getting views. From myself, I don't have just people in Florida. I have people in Maine, in all around the country. I have a hardcore dedicated fan over in Ireland named Terry. A big shout out to him. He's been helping me with my Twitter and getting me more active on Twitter. So I'm getting different countries, different states. We're branching out more than just Florida. And these people, if you show support to us, these people will show support to you, and you'll have to like shoo them away with a stick because they're so hardcore. But they're all awesome, and I love every single one of them. But yeah, you're getting that core group and that circle, and then whatever circles else we can get into, and it creates a frenzy.
That is really cool. And hopefully I'll be able to catch more as you live stream them, because I like to pop in and just see what's going on
Oh yeah, and I
whenever
appreciate
whenever I have them. For people that have listened to this episode, and we've gone a little bit longer, but I'm really happy
it.
that we've been able to just expand on some of the topics and talk about the art a little bit more in detail
Mhm.
than what usually we do on the episode. But for people that have listened and they want to check out your art or find out more information about the live paintings, where can people find you on the internet?
All right, so the easiest way to find everything you need to for me is jbauerart.com, and Bauer is spelled like Jack Bauer, Bauer. You can find me on Instagram's one of my number ones. If you want to catch the Artist Weekly Update every 7:30 on Thursday nights, you can go to facebook.com/jbauerart and type in jbauerart into any social media and you will find me. It's all one word. I'm on YouTube. I'm also put up time-lapse videos on the Hanging with Web Show YouTube channel, so you can see these long 2-hour live painting sessions condensed down to a 2-minute video, and you get to see me move really fast. But those are really cool. I put music to them and everything like that. So if you type in J Bauer Art into any social media thing, you will be able to find me. And then if you would like to book me for a live painting session or anything to that nature, message me on those social medias, or you can email me at jbauerart@gmail.com.
Awesome. And I'll have all the links to all of your social medias on the show notes, the Facebook page, the website, and you can just click on that. So that way you can instantly go and check out some of the art, because it is well worth your time to take a look at Josh's artwork that he has produced and is continuing to produce. And Josh, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come and talk with me about everything under the sun.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy we were finally able to do this. It's been we're almost like our own little Marvel thing. It took a year to get it done, but we finally made it happen.
Exactly. And it was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/talesfromthefandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.